Friends, this is the B-side of Taylor Swift's Cruel Summer that made it onto this playlist. So I don't know the order you all are getting to listen to this in, but I'm recording this right after I tried to record Moment of the Body without a script. And so I'm going to try to be a little more composed and centered on this. I didn't want to write a script for this. I switched to bullet points, and I'm kind of just going to try to play this a little by ear while having more of a roadmap for what I want to say, which I understand is a little bit of cultivation, but maybe that's what this project can be about: cultivation, mourning, and surrender, since I've certainly talked a lot in this project about what Barth sees as his surrender, and in some ways what I'm starting to see as mine. So the whole playlist could have been Taylor Swift songs, and I guess I can talk a little bit about who gave it to me, because for all the entries in this playlist that are music, I want to talk about who gave it to me, because I think that's important. I think I was in eighth grade. I was really into her music, and I have been, since. I don't listen to everything, but I consider myself a fan. Uh, uh, Memory complicates mourning in some ways. I think I wanted this to be in there. How, even though I haven't talked to this person in years, I remember distinctly it was my friend in middle school, Caroline, who told me about Taylor Swift, and that's how I got into this. And that's something she gave me that has outlived our relationship. She's still alive. I just haven't talked to her or really had a desire to. Not out of any malice, I just haven't. But, our relationship, a piece of it remains anyway. Sometimes I think to a new song that comes out, and I wonder, what does Caroline think about this? And that's part of, Ross's idea, I think, of presentness. There's no presentness, but this thing that she gave me survives. This whole playlist could have been Taylor Swift songs, and if we're being honest, someone a lot smarter than me could probably write whole papers about her music and the Eras tour. There's a paper to be written about the universal mourner that we try to create that just doesn't exist. But that's a belief I have that's really challenged by Taylor Swift songs, because Taylor Swift writes really personal, um, personal songs, but they have some universality because people can project onto them and relate to them. That's one of the reasons for her mass appeal and success. I think that people are really able to relate to her work, even though it's about them, which I think is fascinating. People have put together whole timelines of her partners and her relationships and where she was at in life based on what she sings about. And a part of me thinks that that's a little weird and parasocial sometimes, to be honest, but I think it's really interesting that her own life is that trackable through her music, and yet at the same time, people are still really able to relate to it, implying some universality to it. For example, I don't follow this as closely as other people do, but I guess it's pretty common knowledge that All Too Well was about her relationship with John Mayer, I think it was. And that's really interesting, I think, because dating John Mayer is not a universal experience, but the song for a lot of people is relatable with these universal experiences of mourning and being let down and heartbreak and whatnot. And so I've talked a lot about performance too, and I think this ties in. I don't think any work is just written for yourself, especially, when you're making a career out of it like she does. So what does it mean, when this mourning is part performance for herself, part how she puts food on the table? Um, Specifically about Cruel Summer, one thing that's interesting to me is some of the songs in the playlist are ones I go to for a good cry. Wither Away's cover of I Really Want to Stay at Your House, um, Champagne Problems by Taylor Swift on this playlist, A Change of Heart by the 1975, they all just make me cry immediately. And even if some songs on this don't make me cry, they kind of sink my mood and put me in this really melancholic, contemplative state, such as Black by Pale Waves, or Heavenly by Pale Waves. But Cruel Summer doesn't do that. I can listen to it and my mood isn't dragged down. I just listen to it and enjoy it. And so but I still think of it as being about mourning. So that does add the question to this: is mourning always sad? Um, the main lyric I want to talk about in this song is I scream for whatever it's worth. I love you. Ain't that the worst thing you ever heard? And I remember in my MP1, I was talking about feet when Ross Gay says, "Of course she's dead." You know, how there's no amount of flowery language that undoes this. And so I talked about the futility of mourning. And I think this is another line that addresses it with the whole idea of screaming for whatever it's worth. You know, there's no amount of screaming that undoes this situation in any way. There's no amount of screaming that makes it better. It's a shout into the void, and it's futile, as mourning can sometimes be. And then the idea of, telling someone you love them being the worst thing they've ever heard, I think a lot, again, about Christina Sharp and giving someone mourning as a form of violence. But also, if giving someone love that they don't want is a form of violence, um, that's a thought I've had also. Loving someone without their permission, if they don't want to be loved, at least not by you. And then finally, there's another lyric in it, "If I bleed, you'll be the last to know." And I don't know, that to me just stood out as meaningful and something worth including, since I talked about the connection and the space that's shared between loving someone and having to worry about them, and loving someone even if they don't want you to and knowing you're going to mourn them.